I never thought my quiet life on the ranch would turn into a war with the people who called themselves the home of Acre property stretched beyond what the eye could see, rolling hills, pine windbreaks, and a river that shimmered gold at sunset. It wasn't just land.
It was my family's legacy. My father had built the first fence post here with his own hands, and I grew up riding horses before I could even ride a bike. So when a group of so-called homeowners association representatives showed up one morning claiming they now owned it, I thought it was some kind of twisted joke. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from, because this story, it's going to make your blood boil. The morning it started, I was out fixing a gate near the southern pasture. The sun was barely climbing, painting everything in soft orange light, when I saw a convoy of us kicking up dust down the gravel road. 3 black vehicles stopped right at my main gate. Men in suits got out, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on like they were federal agents. One of them, tall and smug-looking, called out, "Madam, you're trespassing on private HOA property." I froze. My hand tightened around the wrench I was holding. "You better check your paperwork," I said, trying not to lie. "This land's been in my family since..." The man smirked, flashing a badge that looked official but not government official. He said, "As of last week, this property was foreclosed and transferred under HOA district management. You can appeal it, but the sales file..." My stomach twisted. "Foreclosed?" I repeated. "That's impossible. I paid cash, no loans, no lands." He shrugged, pulling out a document that looked like a property deed, with my name scratched out and their corporate seal stamped over it. My heart started pounding. The air felt heavier, almost metallic. My dogs barked from the porch, sensing the tension. "Sir," I said slowly, "if you're trying to scam me, you picked the wrong ranch." The man leaned in, voice low and mocking. "You'll have to take that up with the board." Then he turned, signaled to his men, and they posted "No trespassing HOA property" signs on my fence posts.
That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed non-stop, emails, notifications, even a local realtor asking if I was aware the land transfer had been listed online. My chest burned with anger. I called the county clerk's office first thing the next morning. The clerk, an old friend named Debbie, whispered into the receiver, "Mark, I don't know how to tell you this, but someone submitted digital documents with your signature, and they match the file as of registered transactions." My mouth went dry. "Are you saying someone forged my ownership sheet?" Was not someone, the whole legal department. They used an electronic transfer code that only works if a notary approves it. By noon, I was standing outside the HOA headquarters, a sleek glass building that didn't belong anywhere near our rural town.
I walked through the doors, boots butting against the polished marble, and every head turned. The receptionist smoked too wide, tipping something on her keyboard before saying, "Madam, we were expecting you." My pulse jumped. "Expecting me?" I said, voice sharp. "You stole my ranch." She blinked, feigning innocence.
"Sir, all transactions were lawful." I could hear laughter coming from a nearby office, voices saying my name, joking about another stubborn rancher who wanted out. I clenched my fists, every instinct screaming to fight back, but I knew better. Not yet, not until I had proof.
That night, as the wind howled outside and the coyotes cried somewhere in the distance, I made a decision. If they thought they could take my land and sell it under my nose, they had no idea of who they were dealing with. I was just a rancher.
It spent 20 years in land development law before retiring, and now I was going to use every ounce of that knowledge to burn their entire scheme to the ground. The next morning, I started digging, not into the dirt, into their paperwork, every file, every clause, every fake signature.
I drove to the county archives, where the air smelled like dust and old paper. The clerk let me into the records room, and there, under a flickering light, I found something that made my jaw clench: an internal memo from HOA district stating that non-participating rural estates will be reclassified for community use. Translation: they were stealing independent properties
and flipping them for profit. I took photos of everything. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from sheer fury. They didn't just take my land, they took dozens of others too, from families who didn't have the legal background to fight back.
I spent 3 sleepless nights building a case, filing injunctions, compiling notarized statements, cross-referencing electronic codes. My kitchen table was covered in match receipts and coffee-stained printouts.
Every document I uncovered pointed to one name, Rickard Hanley, the HOA president. He'd been using fake shell companies to buy land at auction, land that was never legally for sale. My lawyer friend Angela helped me draft an emergency injunction. She said, sipping her coffee, this guy's got deep connections. If you push too fast, he'll bury you in countersuits. I looked her straight in the eye. Then you'll bury him. In fact, the following week, the HOA posted men at my gate again. They came with trucks, bulldozers, and even a sheriff's deputy who clearly didn't want to be there. I walked out calmly wearing my old leather hat, shotgun slung behind my back, not loaded. But it made the point. You boys looking for trouble? I asked. The deputy raised his hand, voice nervous. Mark, they've got a court order saying the land is HOA property. I handed him my own document. That court order was voided yesterday. Pending fraud investigation. You enforced it, and you're adding that. The deputy hesitated. The HOA manager sneered. You think you can fight us, old man? This isn't the Wild West. I stepped closer, my boots crunching on the gravel. No, I said softly, it's worse. It's paper warfare, and I've got better ammo than Nike. My phone rang again. It was Angela.
Mark, you're not gonna believe this. Their homes are registered under the same fraudulent corporate name they used on your land transfer. I sat back in silence.
Every HOA board member had their personal homes tied to the fake company, meaning if the company was proven fraudulent, I could seize those properties under restitution law. The irony hit me like lightning. They sold my ranch illegally, but legally I could sell their homes to recover damages. I felt a dark, cold calm settle over me. Angela, I said slowly, let's start drafting the filings. The next morning I walked into the courthouse with a folder thicker than a phone book. The clerks watched me, whispering. Everyone knew something big was about to drop. I filed my lawsuit and simultaneously submitted property claims under reversal of fraudulent acquisition. When the news hit, it exploded. Local papers, online blogs, headlines screamed HOA president under fraud investigation. $1 million ranch at center of scandal. Reporters camped outside their neighborhoods. Homeowners panicked, and when I showed up to the HOA's next meeting, they looked at me like they'd seen a ghost.
I didn't say a word. I just placed a thick envelope on the table. The title deeds to their own houses, now legally under my control until restitution was paid. Their president's face went pale. You can't do this. He stammered. I smelled faintly. Can't.
You used the same company to steal my land. I just used your system. Better. The room went silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. I could see anger, fear, and disbelief mix on their faces, and deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The courtroom felt smaller than it should have, like the truth had squeezed the air out of the room and left nothing but pressure.
I watched Rickard Hanley sit there, his feather in his lap, jaw clenched so hard the veins jumped. The fluorescent lights made the sweat on his brow look like a slow leak.
Angela leaned over and whispered the latest. The forensic audit had traced the electronic signatures back to a shell server registered to one of his offshore accounts, and the bank wire transfers looked through companies that didn't exist outside of a box. My stomach churned as exhibits were passed around. Copies of deeds, notarized, affidavits from neighbors were recorded. Phone calls where Hanley bragged about reclassifying lands that didn't belong to him.
The judge read the indictment slowly, each word a hammer. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit theft, and the room held its breath as if expecting the ceiling to fall. Outside the courthouse, a crowd of ranchers and homeowners had gathered, faces weathered and hopeful, their murmurs like wind through corn stalks. I felt their eyes on me, heavy with gratitude and the hunger for justice.
For a moment, the size of everything I'd risked resolved into a single clear thing I'd done, the right thing. When the verdict came down, it hit like a thunderclap, and then a long, steady rain of consequences followed. Hanley and 2 of his accomplices were found guilty on multiple counts. Injunctions were issued, the fraudulent transfers nullified, and the court placed the shell companies into receivership pending restitution.
I remember the hollow, terrible satisfaction when the deed to my ranch was restored in crisp black and white, the county seal stamped like a promise kept.
But I didn't stop. They're using the same legal levers. They'd twisted Angela, and I filed for immediate repossession of the homes and properties that were tied to the fraud, placing them into a trust to compensate victims and fund legal costs.